Probably.
Nabatean, I'm familiar with that. Where would that be? What region of the world would that be?
You have to show that on your map to understand.
No. Would it be like around the?
Yes, around the Arabian Peninsula.
Around
Nabateans. There was the Nabateans, and because you can look at some of the inscriptions in Nabatean, and they're actually script Nabatean, but the text Arabic.
In one of your, I've seen on YouTube, on one of your lectures, it talks about the miracle of the Islam. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. About the miracle of the Islam, miracle of the Quran. About what is it? Is it the writing of it? Is it the words that are used? Why is it so special? I watched it, but I wasn't entirely clear why it was what was so special about it to you.
To summarize in an English language, it will be very difficult. That's the nature of the thing. So it's how the language is constructed in its delivery. So when Allah speaks the Quran, speaks in a form that is unique, and in its construction that is something that it cannot be imitable or imitated using that particular construction. So if I say like, I am going, so you know this word I, who this means, you have a noun and you have
subject
this,
and verb.
and so on, going, and there's a gerund or gerund, as you want to call it, a particular order it comes into. But the Quran is constructed in such a way, it is unlike the Arabs knew and Arab spoke, even though it's an Arabic language. So if I were to speak to you in English...
So it's totally new. It's a totally new way of speaking.
It's not totally new, it's mostly new, okay, in such a way. So that they can recognize it's Arabic, they can understand its meaning, but the form and the way it came to be is something that they were not familiar with. So to replicate it will be impossible for them. So if I were to speak to you as I'm speaking to you in English, I'm speaking with English grammar as much as I can.
Yes.
So I'm not saying, I'm saying, me go now to you or something like this. You will see how you automatically recognize some error in my speech. You say you're not speaking eloquent English. You're making grammatical mistakes here and there. You're making punctuation mistakes in writing, for example. But the Quran came in such a way, it wasn't like prose, it wasn't like poetry. It was only its own genre. Okay? And yet it was so powerful and so eloquent, they could not find faults in its delivery. If I were to change the word order of English sentences like this, you'll immediately realize something's not right. Like you're not speaking English, some gibberish here and there, or you're like a beginner of English. You're making these simple mistakes. But that wasn't the case with the Quran. They immediately recognized the sublime nature of the language in its delivery. And yet the constructive order was different. So that is where the Quran challenges them to bring something like this, like it. And they were not familiar with this, and this unfamiliarity is not something that would prevent them from making, but the way it's constructed is such that they realize you cannot even substitute these stylistic features.
You can't add anything.
You can't say you have, if you have just like in any linguistic construct, you have a certain form. If you use that form and substitute with another word or another verb within this form, you should be able to apply it to a different sentence, right? For example, I am going to eat, or I am going to sleep, or I am going to ride, or I am going to walk. I'm just substituting the verb eating, walking, sleeping, and so on. But if you were to substitute some phrase, words, or construct within that construction, it simply doesn't work. And this is what some of the scholars have shown, where this construction is such way it only works with the words and phrases and the verbs that have been used in the Quran.
Why do they sing? They sort of sing the Quran.
They recite the Quran. The Quran is then recited in a way, so it's not an ordinary speech. It's a recital as well. So you recite in the way the Prophet taught us. There various reasons could be, because Allah is delivering this speech in a way that should resonate in your heart. So you can actually feel and experience the tone and the rhythm and the meters all within you as you read and recite. So the delivery, the way it's delivered also has an effect. Not the content itself, but the form of delivery.
So if do you recite the Quran?
Which we will try to recite, yes.
You do it?
Yeah, every Muslim who learns, they learn to recite. So even if you haven't learned the language itself, what it means, Muslims all around the world, without knowing what the word means, we all try to learn to recite.
What does it give you? What does that give you? Why do you do that?
Okay. Now, I can't explain it to you. Perhaps I can. No. Perhaps this is an experience one needs to have. If I were to recommend you to listen to a recitation, you can undergo this experience. Many people have done that. So you listen to a reciter reading the Quran, and you immerse yourself in this recitation. You may not know anything of the meaning, but just watch and look at the transformation it has internally within you by listening to it. Even by listening to the Quran without knowing its meaning, it has an effect.
It sings inside, it sort of resonates inside you.
It will resonate inside you because Allah knows how best to deliver His message. So He chose a language, Arabic other than any other language. He chose a particular way of delivering this other than just normal speech. He could have just given the speech of the soothsayers or the speech of the Arab poets, but he chose to give it in a speech that is totally unlike any of their speech.
So when they do the calling people to prayer, is that the Quran and is that to touch people's hearts? Or
when you listen to the call to prayer, it's an adhan. The adhan is just a form of calling in a way of calling people rather than ringing the bell or shouting. Yeah, so that's it. But of course, even calling, like, hayya ala salah, it also somehow affects you to like, okay, let me go to prayer. It invites you. Okay, I mean, I don't know how to do adhan like the muaddin, but when you listen to it, you feel inside. But the Quran is such that when our Prophet ﷺ taught us to recite, in fact, the recitation, he is only following that what has been taught. He didn't introduce it. Jibreel alayhi salam, the messenger of revelation, the angel who taught how to recite from Allah, and he followed. Allah says, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. So recite the Quran with this recital, tartil, in the form of recitation. Allah says in the Quran Himself, إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا جَمْعَهُ وَقُرْآنًا فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنًا. To Allah is the gathering of the Quran and its recital. So when the Quran is recited, follow its recital. Okay? So this Quran is also taught even how to recite the Quran. So when you listen, in fact, it's an opportunity for everyone in this month, the blessed month of Ramadan, where you can go to a mosque around sunset and you will see they are reciting the Quran aloud in congregation.
Why?
So this month we recite the Quran more. This is how the Prophet ﷺ, our Prophet, he prayed this prayer in this month, congregational prayer, and asked us to pray likewise, reciting the Quran. So throughout the centuries, it has been a custom for the Muslims to recite the entire Quran in this month. Entire Quran from beginning to end in most countries, in most of the mosques. So if you go to, say, Regent's Mosque, or you go to East London Mosque, any mosque nearby, you can hear the imams, the qari, a reciter, recites the Quran, and he recites the Quran with this articulation of recitation and melody. And you will really appreciate in your heart this Quran, even if you don't understand it. So if you live nearby, wherever you are, go and visit a mosque in this month. So after sunset, they break the prayer, and about an hour or later, roughly, they will start the night prayer called Taraweeh prayers, Salatul Taraweeh or Salatul Qiyam, in which they will recite the Quran in congregation.
Can I just ask one more question? You know, when the Bible was sort of translated into English, they reckon that it changed the way that people spoke and expressed themselves. Is that the same with the Quran? Did it have an enormous effect upon language across Arabia? Did it?
In fact, the earliest Muslims recognized the importance of preserving the Arabic language, the language of the Quran. They did not just translate the Quran in various forms when the need arose. They made sure the Quran is always recited and always read and always taught in Arabic from day one. Never has a time come the Quran was left from the community where the Quran was not read and recited in the Arabic language, the language of the Quran.
Has that Arabic changed over
No,
the centuries?
Arabic language has evolved in various dialects and various forms in modern times, but the Quran has been preserved in its language. How did they do that? Is by preserving and writing and preserving dictionaries earlier on. So we have a dictionary called Kitab al-Ain by Al-Farahidi, one of the earliest dictionaries ever written. What the Quranic words mean. Likewise, many dictionaries are written, so you can't say this word means this when we know what it meant then. So the language has been preserved. So they made sure that not only the Quran was preserved, but the linguistic tool to understand the language is preserved side by side as well. That is why people still today can speak and learn the language of the Quran, called the Arabiyyat al-Fusha, the Fusha Arabic.
So you're speaking a language that's, you know, when you recite the Quran, you're speaking a language that's 1,400 years old?
Yeah.
And you understand it as word for word?
So you would want to. Not everyone who haven't learned the language would know, but if you have learned, you would know.
If you know
And that's why the Quran translators, when they translate, they will tell you this word can also mean this and this and this and this. Because in the English or any other languages, the translation cannot do justice to the Arabic term it is. Because a term can encompass so many different meanings. For example, Allah says He is Al-Ghani. Al-Ghani can mean, in our normal language now, someone who's rich. But actually, Ghani encompasses someone who is free from all wants. Al-Ghani means the one who is free from any wants. He has no need, no wants. Al-Ghani, he is rich in such that he has no need for anything. But I had to explain and express in so many different words just to translate this meaning, Al-Ghani. Yeah? So languages often suffer from these difficulties to express from its original language that it's been translated from. So the Quran has been then transmitted with commentaries or exegeses,
Which keep it in
which
mind.
tells you the various meanings that it encompasses, even within the Arabic language. So commentaries in Arabic language as well, explaining to the linguistic meaning of the words. But we are rest assured what the Quran means to us, because the language has been conveyed to us within this transmission of the Quran. Quran transmission and the linguistic transmission. But language evolves. To give you an example, the Quran uses in the story of Surah Al-Yusuf about sayyara, if I'm not mistaken, in the Surah Al-Yusuf. A sayyara. If you ask any Arab now what's a sayyara, he says it means a car or a taxi. Or sayyara means a car, a transportation. Yeah? But sayyara then meant a caravan. A caravan.
Transport of some sort.
Yeah, but a caravan. But we know it means a caravan because we have this meaning preserved. But the modern language, modern form of the language may have changed. That's why we always distinction between modern Arabic and classical Arabic. Classical Arabic of the Fusha, of the Quran, and the classical texts, and modern Arabic that people speak and they converse in every day. There is this distinction, and they remain side by side.
Thank you. Thank you very
Okay?
much.
Yes, you can see. Okay, thank you.
How do you stop this?